The night begins with a kind of tension that feels almost familiar in this house, like the walls have learned to expect conflict the way they expect the morning sun. The couple is trying to sleep, but the neighbors are arguing again, and the noise is so vivid it's basically a scene playing in the dark. You can hear doors slam, voices spike, and the emotional rhythm of a family dispute that refuses to stay private. It's not merely loud. It's invasive, the kind of sound that turns a normal bedroom into a front row seat. The husband makes a comment, half irritated and half entertained, as if he's trying to control how much the chaos bothers him by turning it into a joke. His wife is more weary than amused, because she understands something he sometimes ignores. When a fight is this big next door, it rarely stays next door. Sure enough, there's a knock, and suddenly the noise has a face. The visitor is the neighbor's son, shaken and embarrassed, asking for money because he wants to leave the house and go to a motel. It's a desperate request that makes the whole situation feel heavier. This isn't a teenager asking for a night out. This is a young man asking for escape from his own father. He's not running from rules. He's running from contempt. The argument, he explains, is about his girlfriend and specifically about her race and the way his father uses that fact like a weapon. The son isn't asking for permission to love who he loves. He's asking for basic decency. Stop degrading her. Stop reducing her to a label. Stop turning his relationship into a shameful family scandal. The hosts bring him inside, partly out of compassion and partly out of self-preservation, because when a neighbor kid is on your doorstep at midnight, sending him back into the storm feels like cruelty. The wife offers coffee and food, trying to turn panic into routine. The husband, as blunt as ever, tries to fix the situation the only way he knows how, with opinions, loud talk, and a self-appointed role as moral judge. He wants to sound like an experienced elder. He wants to sound like someone who has seen it all. But the problem is his worldview is still stuck halfway in a past that doesn't fit the present. He tries to argue that people are different, that certain pairings are complicated, that he's just being realistic. He doesn't notice how his so-called realism echoes the same prejudice the son is trying to escape. Then the father storms in. The father is pure pride, loud, defensive, convinced that admitting wrong is weakness. He doesn't come in to reconcile. He comes in to reclaim authority. He wants to drag his son home and reassert control over the narrative. The wife next door follows too, exhausted and pleading, trying to keep the men from tearing the family apart. The conversation turns into a three-ring collision. The son demanding respect, the father demanding obedience, and the host couple trying to manage a crisis they didn't create. Everyone talks over everyone. Everyone believes they're right. And the worst part is that the argument isn't about one sentence or one moment. It's about the father's identity. He feels his authority is being challenged by a relationship he doesn't approve of, and he reacts the way insecure authority often reacts, with insults and escalation. The son refuses to go back, and that refusal changes the power dynamic. It's one thing to argue in your own house. It's another thing to argue while your child is next door, sleeping on someone else's couch. The father, for the first time, has to confront the image of himself as a man who pushed his own son out of the home. He doesn't say it, but you can see the discomfort. The mother, trying to save the family, begs the host to let the boys stay the night. They do. The house becomes a temporary refuge. Awkward, crowded, but safer than the alternative. Morning arrives with the kind of fragile calm that follows a storm. The son is still there, now wrapped in borrowed clothes, eating breakfast in a place that isn't his home but has become a shelter. The mother comes over too, attempting to broker peace. She's not trying to rewrite her husband's soul. She just needs the household to stop breaking. She quietly promises she'll talk to him, which is what exhausted spouses say when they've been managing someone's anger for years. The hosts try to play normal, but everything is tense. The husband keeps talking because talking is how he avoids discomfort. He tries to position himself as the wise mediator, even though his own opinions are part of the problem. Then he tries something dramatic. He calls the son aside and tells him a long story from an old movie, one of those moral tales about a strict father and a rebellious son, where pride turns into tragedy. The host thinks he's delivering wisdom like a sermon. Don't let anger destroy your family. Go home. Reconcile before it's too late. But the son listens, then uses the story differently. He turns it into leverage. He takes the message, don't let it end badly, and aims it at his father. Change your language, or you'll lose me. The host is stunned because the boy isn't weak. He's strategic. He's calm, direct, and emotionally clearer than the adults around him. Eventually, the father comes over, forced by reality and by his wife's pressure. He attempts an apology, but it's messy. It's not the clean kind of apology that says, I was wrong. It's the kind that tries to keep pride intact while still moving forward. I didn't mean it that way. You know how I am. I'm sorry, but the son doesn't accept it immediately. He demands a real change. Stop using degrading labels. Stop insulting the woman he loves. The father hesitates, then finally bends, not because he suddenly becomes enlightened, but because the cost becomes too high. Losing a son is a price that can crack even stubborn pride. The reconciliation is imperfect, but it's real enough to close the immediate wound. And then the story shifts gears into another kind of conflict, one that isn't shouted across fences but whispered in workplace alliances. A friend of the household, an adult woman trying to rebuild her life, needs a job. The patriarch offers help, and it comes with his usual desire for control and credit. He wants to be the hero. He wants to be thanked. He wants to prove that he's generous while still maintaining his authority over what a woman's place should be. But when a job becomes real, it's not a tidy desk job. It's factory work, physical, loud, and dominated by men who are deeply uncomfortable with a woman entering their space. The backlash is immediate. The men complain that the workplace has changed. They act as if the presence of a woman forces them to watch their language, as if basic decency is oppression. A petition forms to get her removed. It's not just personal dislike. It's an organized attempt to enforce an old hierarchy. The patriarch is now trapped. He helped her get hired, but if he defends her, he risks becoming unpopular with the men. If he abandons her, he reveals his help was shallow. The company leadership steps in with a practical motive. They want to avoid government trouble and protect business interests. They order the patriarch to shut down the harassment and destroy the petition. He does it, not necessarily out of moral clarity, but because authority above him demands it. The woman stays. For a moment, it feels like victory, but then the conversation turns to pay, and pay exposes hypocrisy faster than any argument about values. The woman believes she's being paid less than the man who did the job before. The patriarch jumps to smug explanations about worth and roles, until the reality lands. She's making exactly what he's making. That means the inequality he wanted to lecture about is actually about him. The joke isn't cruel, it's revealing. Equality becomes uncomfortable when it's no longer theoretical. It becomes personal when it shows that his status isn't as high as he pretends. From there, the household tension shifts into something quieter but deeper, the future. A funeral triggers thoughts about mortality, about how quickly people disappear, about whether anyone will remember you when you're gone. The younger couple begins arguing about children. The wife wants a baby, partly from love, partly from the desire to build a life that feels meaningful and stable. The husband refuses, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. He lists reasons. The world feels unstable. The future feels uncertain. Raising children feels irresponsible. The wife experiences it as betrayal. She thought they shared a dream. He thought he was protecting them from a harsh reality. Their argument becomes a collision of hope versus anxiety, family legacy versus social fear. And then, like a final twist to an already chaotic stretch, a simple home party meant to sell household products becomes a stage for panic. The patriarch is supposed to be away at a convention. He's supposed to call. He doesn't. Hours pass. No contact. The daughter's fear escalates from irritation to dread. The wife tries to host the party while swallowing anxiety, smiling at guests while her mind spirals toward worst-case scenarios. The household becomes surreal. Laughter and sales talk on the surface, raw worry underneath. Calls are made. People argue about whether it's rational to panic. The son-in-law insists fear without proof is useless. The daughter insists silence is proof enough. And the party continues as if performing normality might somehow protect them from the truth. By the end, what makes this stretch hit is how it layers conflict after conflict without letting anyone breathe. A midnight family crisis driven by prejudice, a workplace revolt driven by exclusion, and a domestic panic driven by uncertainty. The comedy exists, but it's the kind of comedy that comes from watching people stumble through their worst instincts. Then occasionally, almost accidentally, find a better version of themselves because the consequences finally force them to.